Hey guys, it is now time for our read aloud, and today we're going to read a little bit about the gold, panning for gold, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of what was going on in the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast where New York is, so we'll focus a little bit more on the San Francisco side of it. And before we get going, let's review a little bit of what we read yesterday. Do you remember the name of the island on the East Coast that immigrants came to? Something Island. Do you remember that? What it was called Ellis Island. And I have a picture of the Immigration Center in Ellis Island right here. We've seen that. Okay. And where did most of the immigrants that came through Ellis Island, where did they come from? Do you remember? What part of the world? Came through, they were from Europe, countries like Germany, Ireland. We read about the family, the Murphy family that came from Ireland. Okay. So today we're going to focus a little bit on what was the name of the island by San Francisco. Do you remember that? Here's a picture of it. It's in black and white. It's probably because it's no longer around, these buildings. Maybe. It was called Angel Island. Angel Island. So today for our read aloud, some new vocabulary we need to know. I've been writing in cursive because we're there. We just have I don't know, probably half a dozen capital letters to go, and we will have the whole alphabet. So I'm going to start trying to write more in cursive on our videos if I have to write something on the board. But the first one is the word characters. Characters. So there's the characters like a character in a movie. And then there's characters like, we talked about the Cherokee Indian language earlier this year. A character would be a symbol or even a letter, that kind of characters, okay? Symbols, letters, numbers, those are characters, okay? And I don't know, hopefully you can read this word. It's a big word. E-X. Can you read that word? Exhausting, right? If something is exhausting, it's very tiring. Exhausting. Next. H-O-N-O-R. To honor somebody. Honor. If you honor somebody, you kind of pay tribute to them, or you respect them because they may have had integrity or did something, so you honor somebody. Okay? To treat someone with the respect. What about this one? This is a big word, but if you sound it out, R-E-S-P-O-N-S-I-B-I-L-I-T-I-E-S. Ris. You all have some around your house. Responsibilities, right? Things that you're expected to do are your responsibilities. And the last one starts with the W. The G is making a J sound. The E makes the A say its name. It's what you get paid to work somewhere. Wages. Wages. Okay? If you have a job, you get paid your wages. That's why you do your job, right? All right. So we're going to start our read aloud. It's a little bit about panning for gold, and we're going to cover that. It's actually more the people that came from China, that sort of thing. Although we have this, these people are panning for gold. So they dip a pan in the water in the river and they swish it around until they try and find gold in the river. in the rivers and lakes and that sort of thing. So, so we're going to talk about that. This is your coloring sheet for today. And we will get started with our read aloud. Let's see the picture. One day in 1858, Lin Wen hurried down the steep stairway and out onto the street that cut through his neighborhood in San Francisco, California. Lin Wen's neighborhood in San Francisco was called Chinatown because it was the area of town where many immigrants from China settled. So in Chinatown in San Francisco, it's several blocks of all these like Chinese restaurants, Chinese shops, it's very much like the culture of China. That's where they live. And a lot of people actually speak Chinese that live there. Like other immigrant groups, the Chinese came to America for many reasons. Gold Mountain, or Gam San, as the Chinese called it, was one of the main reasons, or pull factors, the Chinese immigrated to the United States. After word reached China of the discovery of gold in the mountains of California, Chinese people were soon crossing the Pacific Ocean in large numbers, hoping to make their fortune. People claimed there is a whole mountain made of gold gleaming in the sun. Just want to show you this. Okay, so we have the globe, United States right here, right? So can you see San Francisco just above my finger is San Francisco. Okay, and then we have the Pacific Ocean over here. It's a big ocean. It says North Pacific, South Pacific, but altogether it's the Pacific Ocean. And China here kind of borders it. And then they came all the way over to San Francisco. Okay, so they believe that there was, or they used to say there's a whole mountain made of gold gleaming in the sun. I don't know about that, but that's what they said. You just chip away pieces of the mountain soon you are as rich as the Emperor of China. Do you think there was an actual mountain made of pure gold? Probably not, but that was a myth, right? We've talked about myths before, but that doesn't mean that there isn't gold in that area. So it probably, there's gold in the area, but I doubt it's pure gold. In fact, it wasn't pure gold, not the mountain itself. Lin Wen and his father traveled to America hoping to make a better life for themselves and their family. In China, their family, along with many other Chinese families, was very poor. It was hard for Lin Wen's father to support his family. He decided to take Lin Wen to America and search for gold. They had come on a great steamship, leaving behind Lin Wen's mother, his two sisters, and his grandmother in China. On the journey to the United States, Lin Wen's father had told him, "We will make enough money to bring over the rest of our family too, or we will take the money home and live as rich men." So what are the push factors and pull factors that brought Lin Wen and his father to the United States? Think about that. What would be a push factor? A push factor. They probably don't have enough. It sounds like they don't have enough food and enough money in China. So that would be a push factor. And a pull factor in the United States is that they have gold and they can go and try and find gold and make money. And he said they were going to do one of two things. Either make enough money to bring the rest of the family over, or make enough money and then go back to China and then live as wealthy as the Chinese emperor. Live as rich men. Okay. Since coming through the immigration center on Angel Island, Lin Wen and his father had discovered that life in the United States was not as easy as they had expected it to be. Chinese immigrants like Lin Wen and his father experienced hostility from Americans in California. What does it mean that they experienced hostility? Do you remember what the word hostility meant? That was one of our words last week. It's like people weren't very nice to them, right? They didn't really want them. So some Americans believed Chinese immigrants would take all their jobs because they were willing to work for lower wages, for less money or pay. Sometimes jobs paying lower wages were all the Chinese could get because some Americans at that time would not hire them to work in jobs that paid better. Okay? The few jobs Chinese immigrants were allowed to do were often hard and dangerous, such as helping to build railroad that crossed the continent and would link the eastern and western sections of the United States. Some Irish immigrants also helped build that historic railroad. Other Chinese immigrants took jobs working long, exhausting, or extremely tiring hours in woolen mills, washing dishes in restaurant kitchens, or working in laundries where the clothes were washed in large wooden kettles of boiling water. Okay, these jobs would start early in the morning and would end late at night. So many immigrants, not just the Chinese immigrants, had to work long, exhausting hours. Americans who were hostile to the Chinese did not like how the Chinese had very different traditions and customs from Americans. So they didn't like that they had different customs and rituals. European immigrants that settled into their new American life had trouble accepting immigrants who didn't come from their own homelands in Europe. But not all Americans were hostile to the Chinese immigrants. Some realized how difficult a new life in America could be for newcomers. Many Americans were welcoming and kind to the many different immigrants of the United States. So yesterday, we did the worksheet on kindness. So, many Americans were welcoming, that was today, were welcoming and kind. So that was a good thing to teach kindness. Lin Wen and his father never got as far as the gold mines or the mountains. So they didn't quite make it to the gold mines or the mountains. And they quickly learned that it was not easy to find gold as they had heard. They ended up in Chinatown, where Lin Wen's father worked in a laundry, and Lin Wen was lucky enough to work at a grocery store selling traditional Chinese food. Lin Wen was on his way to work now, but he had to stop to make first. So here, going to work. Winding his way through the streets, he followed a side street to a small door. After passing through it, he climbed some stairs and entered a room. Oh, he's entering the room. No one would have guessed from the street that this rundown building could hold such a beautiful room. Hanging on the walls were red silk cloths bearing gold-colored Chinese characters. There's the characters. On the floors were plush silk cushions, and the air was fragrant with the sweet smell of incense. So that's wood that, when burned, filled the place with a smell like flowers. An old Chinese man nodded a welcome. He asked, "You are here to honor, or show respect for, the memory of your grandfather." "Yes, please," Lin Wen answered. Remembering a person's ancestors was and still is an important Chinese belief. We owe our being here to those who came before us. Lin Wen's father had taught him one way to show our respect is to say special prayers and burn incense in their memory. Lin Wen's grandfather had died long before Lin Wen and his father had come to America, but they continued to honor him. Lin Wen bought a thin stick of incense from the old man, lit the end with a match, and said a few prayers. Afterward, he thanked the old man and continued on his way to work. So he, in essence, stopped and went to the shop, lit an incense, said a prayer in honor of his grandfather, and then continued on his way to work. So he stopped and honored that. On Monday of next week is Memorial Day. And Memorial Day is actually when we should stop and honor those people who had died before us. We traditionally recognize it as people who fought for our country or died in battles and died for our country. That's kind of the idea of Memorial Day, but you can also honor and remember anybody that you cared for or loved or was an ancestor of yours who may have died before you. And so you honor them on Memorial Day. Memorial meaning memory, right? Memorial, memory. So you just remember them, and that's why we put flowers or flags or things like that on people's graves, because we honor them and remember them. I'll continue. The market was crowded with shoppers buying ducks, chickens, vegetables, rice, and other produce for traditional Chinese recipes. The owner of the market, Mr. Wang, had known Lin Wen's family back in China. After arriving in San Francisco, Lin Wen and his father had gone to see their old friend, Mr. Wang, who said, "I can hire you or your son to work in my store." Lin Wen's father had answered, "This is an act of kindness, my friend. Let my son work with you. Another friend has offered us a job at his laundry. I will take that job because it will be more demanding. And that way my son will have some time to study and learn." At the time, Lin Wen said nothing, but that night he had quietly asked his father, "Father, should I not respect you as the head of our family? Yet you will not let me take seriously the responsibilities, or the things I'm counted on to do, for our family that you have taught me are mine. I should take the job at the laundry. I am young and strong. It will be easy for me to work long hours there. You should work in the grocery." Lin Wen's father said, "Lin Wen, the only thing as important as respecting your elders is getting an education. If you work in the laundry, you will not have time to study and educate yourself. That is also one of your responsibilities. I have made my decision, but your offer to work in the laundry means a great deal to me. I hope that someday we will have enough money so that we can bring our family here. But even if we never make a lot of money, I know that I am a rich man, for I have something more valuable than gold. A son for whom I am very proud." Remember this moment, Lin Wen smiled as he was selling spices to a customer. She noticed Lin Wen smile. "Why are you so happy today?" she asked, handing him her money. This market is not exactly Gold Mountain, you know." "Perhaps it is," Lin Wen answered, and he smiled as he handed her back her change. Okay, so in our read aloud that we read today, from what country did our characters, there's that word characters again, where did they emigrate from? Emigrate. China, right? And what immigration center did they come through on the West Coast? What was the name of the immigration center? Not Ellis Island, but Angel Island. And many Chinese people came to the United States thinking they could get gold or go mine for gold or pan for gold, but most of them actually, a lot of them did not. So where did they work in San Francisco? What kind of places? They worked in markets, they worked at laundry places, they worked at woolen mills where they made clothing and that sort of thing. Okay? And why do you think Lin Wen and his father chose to live in Chinatown? in San Francisco. It's a part of San Francisco. Why did they live in Chinatown, and why didn't they just live somewhere else in San Francisco? Why did they choose to live there? Because there were a lot of people like them in that area, people that reminded them of their homeland, and people who had shops with Chinese characters on the walls and those sort of things. So it was similar to what they were used to, and that's why they chose to live there. So yesterday we read about Sean and Fiona. They were from Ireland. What kind of similarities do you see with Lin Wen and his father compared to Sean and Fiona? They were both push factors in the land that they were coming from, in the countries that they were coming from, and then pull factors in the United States for opportunities and jobs. And they wanted to make a new life over here because things weren't as great in their homelands. And then they also chose to live in areas, both Sean and Fiona and Lin Wen and his father, they chose to live in areas or neighborhoods really that were similar to where they came from. They had similar foods, right? Similar foods in Chinatown, similar foods in where Sean and Fiona chose to live. They ate at Murphy's, or at kind of a restaurant that served Irish food, and Lin Wen and his father chose to live in Chinatown, where the culture is much like home. So they chose to live in areas that made them feel good. So now that we're completed with the reading, we have more of this. Okay, it's another kind of puzzle piece. This kind of looks like Texas to me, right? Texas, kind of Louisiana, going up. So that looks like the southern part of the United States. Okay, and we learned a little bit more about immigration today. And I'd like you to just write in here some things you learned about immigration, or some things about immigration. Okay, there are push and pull factors. What are they? People chose to live in areas similar to where their homeland was. So just tell me anything that you think about when we talk about immigration. If you get that on there and get that sent over to me, that would be fantastic. So I hope you're all well. And it being Tuesday, pretty nice out. So get outside, get some exercise. And when we're done with this, we will move on to handwriting. Bye, guys.